Hello and welcome to today's Back to Basics show. I'm Rico Burton and I volunteer with AARP Arizona. Now, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and approximately 900,000 here in Arizona, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families: health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. Now, here in the month of August, we've been leaning into AARP's return to in person local events, volunteering with AARP Rewards, and amplifying the call to action for the 50 plus community to deepen connections. AARP has focused on the important work of being a wise friend and fierce defender for people 50 plus during the COVID-19 pandemic, demonstrating our commitment to good health and financial security. As we face another summer with pandemic concerns and record inflation, the health and wealth communications continue to be important, as does connecting with others in the name of health and happiness. We'll meet this month by offering flexibility, returning to free in person events in local communities, as well as providing virtual experiences where people 50 plus can make connections, learn something new, have fun, and discover new interests. You can visit us for resources. You'll see the URL there along the screen. Hello there, Coach Sherry Ann. Today we are going to be talking about sleep and its importance. For anyone joining us, make sure you tell us who you are, where you're from, and if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat and I'll get to them. Hi there.
Hi, Lady B. Yes, we've already seen quite a few people chiming in and letting us know where they're tuning in from. So I really do appreciate that. So welcome. So yes, today we are going to be talking about sleep, the importance of sleep. And I have 8 tips for you to get better sleep, because sleep is really, really imperative to our health. And sleep is one of those things that we just take for granted. We don't really even think about and focus on our sleep and what's happening when we sleep. And so one of the questions I was asked people is like, how well did you sleep last night? And people kind of have to really think about it, because they don't think about how they sleep, how they slept, and so how did you sleep last night, Lady B?
Well, when you ask that, the question came to my mind, and I know you're not supposed to answer a question with a question, but what denotes good sleep? That would be the question. Is it just when you go to sleep and you're out for X amount of hours, or what makes sleep
I,
good sleep? And then I can
I
answer your question.
you teed that up perfectly. And I love it, because then my very follow-up question, my very Socratic way of doing things with people is, so do you remember dreaming?
No, no. I haven't remembered dreaming in a while now. Is that a sign of something?
Well, it's just, we do want to have dreams. We don't always remember our dreams,
Right.
but when you do remember your dreams, it means that you are in kind of a lighter state of sleep, because we do dream. And so my next question then for you is, did you wake up to an alarm clock, or do you allow yourself to wake up on your own?
Oh, honey, the Lord Jesus woke me up this morning. No clock needed. Mm-mm. No. And I marvel at it every time it happens. It's like, how did this just happen? Wow. So yes, no alarm clock for me.
Good. So do you typically wake up without an alarm clock, or do you typically have to use an alarm clock?
Nope, no alarm. I have to use an alarm clock to remember meetings, but not to wake up.
Perfect. Well, if you're one of those viewers that, you do have to wake up to an alarm clock, I would encourage you to think about why you have to wake up to an alarm clock. Are you getting enough sleep? For the longest time, I would wake up to an alarm clock, but then I was paying attention to my body, and we'll go into this a little bit more in the evening, making sure that I was getting to bed when I needed to get to bed, so that I would awake upon when I needed to wake up without an alarm clock. So now I wake up in the early 5 o'clock, sometimes late 4 o'clock hour, on my own volition. But that's because, and I get a solid 7+ hours of sleep. It's usually, I'm very consistent. And that is one thing that I am. And I usually get about 7 hours and 20 minutes. Like, it ranges from 7:15 to 7:30 hours of sleep that I get. And that's with no alarm clock waking up. If I
That's
have
no alarm clock, no little children running in, no toddlers, no nobody. So
No, mine are teenagers now. Now I go to bed before they go to bed, actually, which is so hard because they need that sleep too. And that's one of the things is when children are growing, they need sleep. But teenagers are so attached to these little mini computers that they carry around. And so we have a rule in our house that, they can't have them after a certain time, and no TV, no gaming, all screens are shut down to
you
help
just
them.
said you go to sleep before they do. You don't know what they're doing.
I know. I was a teenager once.
Right?
So this I know, but all I can do is provide the opportunity for them. And, at some point they're going to make their own choices and they're going to live and die by them, and so I'm definitely not a helicopter parent, so I provide opportunities and help them live through their choices. But yeah, so I'm in bed before they are, which is kind of interesting. So another thing to think about is, did you sleep solidly through the night without waking? So we have these circadian rhythms that our body goes through. So we're going to go through sleep cycles. And when you come up out of one, sometimes you wake up and you don't even know you wake up because you just dip right back down in. So I, a couple years ago, bought an Oura ring, and it's OURA. And there's also Whoop straps. And then you can also use Apple devices, your Apple Watch, so there's these sleep things that you can wear that monitor your sleep, your temperature, your respiration rate, your heart rate, all kinds of things. And it measures when you're in your sleep cycles. And so it's fascinating. So I played with sleep a lot the last couple of years just to see what impacts sleep and what doesn't impact sleep, because I make myself be a guinea pig usually when I'm getting ready to talk about something. And I've talked about sleep before. So it's one thing that I really harp on people about because it's so important. So 2 out of 3 people are chronically sleep deprived, which is not good.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Not getting good sleep impacts your health tremendously. You are more likely to have dementia. You're more likely to have depression, mood disorders, learning and memory issues, heart disease. Your blood pressure can get raised blood pressure, most likely to have weight gain because we release hormones when we sleep. And so that regulates our metabolism. So you're most likely to have, weight gain issues and possibly diabetes. As you age, you have more fall related injuries. There's so many things that can happen due to sleep deprivation. So you have to take your sleep seriously. You got it.
I just feel so sad right now. I'm just listening to all of those things. Like, oh my gosh, if I don't sleep well, all of those things could potentially happen.
Yeah, but it's just the importance of it. It's one of those things, like I said, we take it for granted, just like we take other breathing for granted, like that we just breathe, but we don't really give the intent to breathing and what breathing does for our bodies. And so when you're sleeping, and so it helps to understand what happens when you're sleeping. So when you're sleeping, your body, that is your body's opportunity to replenish itself, your whole body from brain to heart, everything. Your metabolism goes through a whole, the inner workings of your metabolism working or getting to work. Your immune system is boosted. Your tissues are healing. So when people have injuries, sleep helps. Think about it when you're also sick. What is the number one things that your doctor tells you? Make sure you're getting plenty of rest. And that is because your body is repairing itself when you are resting, when you are sleeping. When you're sleeping, your memories are formed. So if you're having memory issues, it could be because of sleep deprivation. So because when we sleep, our brain goes through a wash actually, and it files all of the information that we took on in the day and it filters it. So it creates memories, and then it files away things that aren't important, puts things, in places that are important. Our brain is pretty amazing. So if you're not sleeping, memories aren't being formed. And so there's just so many things that can happen when you're not getting proper sleep.
So then if something happens during the day that I'm not real happy about, maybe I should stay up so that I don't go to sleep and remember. Maybe that's not a memory I want to have.
Well, or you can go through some relaxation and release techniques and release that so that you can sleep.
That sounds better.
So yes, in fact, that kind of goes into one of the things of napping. Like one of the common questions I get is like, well, how is napping? That's sleeping. But if you are napping longer than 20 minutes, you're going to start a whole sleep cycle. And some people's sleep cycles can range anywhere from an hour to 3 hours long. And so if you're going, actually you can start dipping into, pretty quickly into a sleep cycle. So if you're sleeping long, during the day, it's definitely going to impact your night sleeping. It's not like you can bank hours during the day and keep it short at night. You really do want a solid 7 to 8 hours at night. And so, but back to what you were saying though, if you have an issue during the day that might get you riled up or whatnot, doing rest and relaxation techniques and meditation can help with that, in the sense of just dissolving that issue so that you don't create a bad memory around it, but also just helping with stress, because stress can really impact our ability to sleep. So doing rest and relaxation and meditation, which we did, I think, just a couple weeks ago. And so for our viewers that are listening, like if there's a topic that you're interested in me covering, you can always put it in the chat and I'll see it and I can throw it into the future. Or you might be able to put it in the search of the AARP Arizona Facebook page, and it'll pull up all the back to basics that I've done for the last couple of years now. So if I haven't covered it, put it in there and I'll cover it, but you can always go back and look. So we did do one on meditation. I don't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or when it was, but it was just recently.
In a while. What comes to my mind, we talk about sleep and how much people need. I think about people who have to work 2 jobs. And so, and people who don't have the luxury, if you will, of getting a good night's sleep. And so they are impacted, and it's not necessarily by choice. And so they have to manage around that. Hopefully you'll have some tips for that later on. I know you're going to give us 8 tips, but
well, let's dive into those. Let's dive into those then. So like one of the things, if you're working 2 jobs, the best thing you can do is try to create a schedule for yourself. Or if you're working, swing shifts, or if you're working, long shifts, if you're a nurse or a doctor, and thank you for your service, you might have an issue where you can't get onto a schedule. So the best thing you can do is kind of create as much of a schedule as possible for yourself, because our bodies and our brains are very routine. If you have children, think about how well children behave with routines. Like, do they know what to expect? We as adults are the same way. So if you can create, a schedule for you to stick to, it's so much better for you. And so like I start my winding down at 8:30 at night. Like that's when stuff starts to really get wound down. By 9 o'clock, there's no electronics. And that's for everyone in the house. And in my house, we also have, this is part of tip. So tip number 1 is stick to a schedule. Tip number 2 is have a bedtime ritual, and if you can try to avoid being a night owl, that will help you because it affects your REM sleep. And so what we do in the house here is I have red lights. And so we switch to red lights later in the evening because that just lets everyone know like their brain is ready to like start shutting down. And it just helps because it's not stimulating the brain, because we used to live by the sun. And then someone invented a light bulb and it changed everything. So white light impacts your brain. And then I could, get all scientific with you about how the retina absorbs and whatnot, but that's not necessary. So we switched to red lights because it affects the brain differently. So some of the floodlights in the hallway are red. There's some night lights. There's kick lights, so there's red lights in the house in case someone has to get up in the night, because it doesn't stimulate you and awaken you. So red lights.
A red light district going on over there. Okay.
It is in a good way. And how I came about finding that out is because we do a lot of camping, and on our headlamps, there's a red light that you use at night when you're talking to your friends around, because white light is kind of blinding, but the red light is not. So you can still see each other and see things, but you're not like squinting because you've got a white light shining in your face. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So then did a little more research, and it's actually quite common for a lot of people to do red lights in their house because it helps in the evenings, and it actually helps with children when they're getting, infants, when they're waking up in the middle of the night to night train them. Because if you get up in the middle of the night and you turn a white light on, they think the day has started, even though it's 1 a.m. So,
right. Well, you mentioned how this can impact your REM, which is rapid eye movement part of sleep. What does that mean?
So that is actually when you are dreaming. And so that's when because dreaming is an important part of sleeping, and we don't always remember our dreams, but it's a part of the sleep cycle that you want to have. And so most people, if they don't hit their REM, it's because they're going into light and deep sleep and they're just floating between those two and they're not hitting their REM and completing their cycle, their sleep cycle. So if you're staying up late at night, it's just impacting your ability to have a full sleep cycle. So that's why when people are night owls and they stay up late and they get up the next day and they're kind of groggy, it's just because they didn't really get a full, they probably didn't go through their whole sleep cycle. So another tip, so tip number 3 is absorbing the rising sun, making sure that you're getting plenty of vitamin D on your skin. And so in order to create vitamin D, because our bodies create it from the sun, you can take vitamin D supplements, but it's always best to get it in a natural way, and that's just from the sun. All you need is 15 to 20 minutes on your skin, and that exposed skin. So, and interestingly enough, here in Arizona, most people are vitamin D deficient because we cover our skin because of sun damage and just so much skin, so much sun exposure, or we put so much sunscreen on that we're not really absorbing the rays that help create vitamin D. So make sure you're getting about 15 to 20 minutes of sunshine on your body. You'd be amazed at how well you will sleep. And actually, vitamin D helps a whole host of things, your immune process, everything. So try to get out and get some 15 to 20 minutes of sun on your exposed skin. And there's foods that are fortified with vitamin D if you don't want to take a supplement, but there's also certain foods that have a lot of vitamin D in them too. And that would be like salmon, tuna, eggs. So you can consume those too as well to try to get some vitamin D.
So the 15, 20 minutes of sun, do you have to do it all in one sitting, or can you break it up 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes later?
Oh yeah, you can break it up for sure. Definitely. Yep. Yeah, but it's really important to do it, and it's just amazing to me how much vitamin D deficiency we have here in Arizona. But at the same time, when I thought about it, when people are covering their skin, I was like, well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's 197 degrees outside. We're not
feels
trying
like-
to expose ourselves, but we don't have to. Yeah.
We got kind of lucky early in August, but our heat has ratcheted back up. So
For sure.
So another thing that's really good for you. So tip number 4 would be to exercise daily. And that doesn't have to be anything super strenuous, but get out and utilize your body. Go for a walk. All you need to do is 15 minutes, but my rule of thumb is 150 minutes a week. And so if you do that 5 days a week, that's just 30 minutes each day. And if 30 minutes sounds like a lot, you can do 15 in the morning and 15 in the evening. Just go for a walk before the sun is up super high in the sky. But right now it raises about, I think the sun's up at 6:30. So you can go out, maybe even 6 now. You can go out for a 15, 20-minute walk and have just the early sun rays, on your body. And you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So get out there and get exercising. I do see a question that popped in here.
Let's see. Do you have to be in direct sunlight, or can you sit in the shade or ride in your car for the 15 or 20 minutes of sun? Good question. Thank you for that, Beth.
Yes, you do need to be in the direct sunlight, so you do need to be in the direct sunlight. If you're in your car and it's a convertible, then but our windows have a tent on them, usually in cars, that will prevent the UV light to come through to give you what you need to create your vitamin D. So yes, you want to be in the direct sunlight for about 15 to 20 minutes. Yep.
So sitting in the shade doesn't work?
Nope. You need to have that sun on your skin.
That's a little tough here in Arizona.
I know, but 15 to 20 minutes, it'll feel so good. So good. So the next one is to pay attention. Tip number 5 is to pay attention to the temperature of your room. Make sure it's cool and quiet and dark. Ideally, the ideal temperature is 60 to 67 degrees, which is hard here in Arizona because then your AC bill is going to be through the roof. So that is challenging, but if you have a small place, it might be easy for you to be able to do that. I have a 2-story, and so it's really hard to get the upstairs cool enough. Luckily, we have 2 units that cool our house, and so we have them set at different, because all the bedrooms are upstairs. So we turn it down at night. We turn our AC down. But try to have it as cool as you can do it. Have a fan if you can't get it cool enough, because that'll help the air circulate. It also creates some white noise. So we have fans in all of the rooms, like floor fans that create some noise. And it helps just keep it a little bit cooler. Try to have it as dark as possible. Don't plug your electronics in your room, because it still emits a light, and so try not to have any electronics that emit anything. And so just keep it as dark as you possibly can to help you sleep. All right.
Interesting.
So tip number 6 is mind your electronics. So it's that you have a blue wavelength that comes from them that actually stimulates the brain. And so until I created the rule of just no electronics after a certain time, I even tried doing where I went to a grayscale on all the electronics, to where there was no color and it was just grayscale to not stimulate the brain. And that was still not really working. And so then it was just like, nah, no electronics after a certain time. And so really mind your electronics, turn them off. And some people are like, well, I use my phone as my alarm clock. It's like, but you're so tempted that if you do wake up in the middle of the night, you're going to flip it over and look at it. And then if there's any notifications on it, there's just too much temptation. So if you can, try to keep your electronics in a different room. Leave them in the kitchen, when you go to bed. Don't take them to the bedroom. So just really mind your electronics and, create what works best for you.
An emergency could take place, then what?
Well, that's the thing. Like, so my phone is in my room when my children are out. And so, because I go to bed before they do. So, but once they're once I know everyone's in the house, then I don't really have anything to worry about. But, if you're in a situation where you need to be able to be alerted due to if there's an emergency with family members or things like that, then you might have to put your phone in your room. But you can put it like in a drawer in your nightstand. So you're not tempted, but where you'll still hear it if it rings.
Okay. What about those of us who use Calm on your phone, the app?
Well, then that's another thing is like, if once you're done using it, because we're going to actually talk about Calm. Calm is a good one to use. So once you're done using it, I would encourage you to put your phone in a drawer or away to where you're not going to be tempted to use it. If you're listening to like a podcast or an adult bedtime story, because that's usually what Calm is for. Because if you wake up in the night because Calm can be used for some people that have a lot of anxiety and wake up in the night feeling anxious, then that's a recommendation of turning Calm on to help reduce anxiety. So if you have to use it, then you don't really have a choice to not put your electronics in a different room, but you can still mind your electronics as far as turning them off at a certain time, doing your ritual, like I mentioned earlier, of using Calm. That can be part of your ritual, but then be done with your phone. And just put it away so that you're not tempted. So the tip number 7 is avoid alcohol late in the day or late in the night. And avoid caffeine as well. And so, because alcohol actually has a lot of sugar in it. And so it's going to change your metabolism, and your metabolism is going to be working a little harder. And so alcohol does impact our sleep. And of course, caffeine impacts our sleep. So try to keep, avoid alcohol late at night, and then I wouldn't do caffeine. It's different for everybody, but definitely not after lunch. Like, keep your caffeine early in the day.
Wow. Okay.
So, which is hard for some people because they're like, I need an afternoon pickup. It's like, well, maybe that you need an afternoon pick me up because you're not sleeping well at night because you're having your caffeine in the middle of the afternoon. So try avoiding it, getting to bed at a reasonable time, and see how well you sleep.
So wine with dinner then is not a good idea?
Wine with dinner is fine, but I'm talking about like later after that, like a nightcap kind of thing.
Oh.
So and that's the other thing is when you're eating later in the day, that's going to impact your sleep. You should be done eating like 3 hours prior to going to bed, because that allows your body to fully digest. Because if you eat late and then go to bed, that's going to impact your sleep tremendously. So, and because we release all kinds of hormones and enzymes when we're digesting food, so that's going to be the focus rather than releasing things to hormones to help with sleep and healing the body and whatnot. So you should be done eating about 3 hours prior to going to bed.
Okay.
So the last tip is mind your medicines. So cold medicines, headache medicines, antidepressants, all, some of these things have stimulants in them. So just be mindful of that. So if you are taking medicines, talk to your doctor about the best time of day to take them. And so that's my first recommendation, just talk to your doctor about when to take them. But if you're just taking cold meds and things like that, because right now there's an influx, I was just saying before, like there's so many kids out at school with sicknesses, try to stick to that stuff earlier in the day, especially the ones that have stimulants in them. And so, but just mind your medicines. Your medicines might be keeping you awake. Maybe you can talk to your doctor about taking them in the morning and not at night.
And we talked before, I remembered when we talked about sleep before I asked this question, what about some of the natural aids that are out there to help people sleep, the melatonin and some of the other over-the-counter kind of medicines that you can use?
Yes. Melatonin is a great one. And so and we actually produce melatonin from our pineal gland. And so if you want to take melatonin to help out, start with just a 3 little milligram capsule, and see how that works for you. You can bump it up if you need to. It's not harmful and it'll help with sleep. Definitely. Another one is the Valerian root. You can take like you can get Valerian root in tea too. So you can drink it in tea, or you can consume it as a supplement like melatonin. So that's a good one. Another one is chamomile tea. And so that actually really does help with just soothing and calming. So you can take chamomile tea. Another is magnesium. So taking a magnesium and potassium supplement will actually really help because they help with muscle contractility, but they also help with synthesizing neurotransmitters. So it metabolizes energy. So there's these biochemical reactions that we have in our body. And so those will just help with taking care of that so that you can sleep. So a magnesium and potassium supplement is actually really, really good as well. Another thing that you can do is like scents, and this can be part of your ritual. So we do lavender in this house. And so you can burn a candle, you can do lavender spray, and there's all kinds of things that you can do, oils. But lavender oil is a really good soothing scent to help tell the brain, oh, it's time to sleep. When my kids were babies, I would lather them in lavender lotion. And so now when we burn lavender, I think it's just, instinctual in them. They're like, oh, that's sleepy time.
Wonderful.
Another tea is passion flower tea. That's a really good tea to try as well to help with soothing and calming and going to sleep. If you have issues with body temperature at night, and so I've talked about making sure your room is cool enough, make sure you have appropriate sheets, airflow, things like that. But glycine is an amino acid that helps to lower body temperature. So if you are a woman that's premenopausal and you're having these issues with just body temperature and hot flashes, you can look for, glycine at like Sprouts. And of course, you've all heard of tryptophan. That's another amino acid that's in turkey. So, that is an amino acid that also it makes serotonin. And melatonin. So it just that's what makes us sleepy is the tryptophan. And so that's another amino acid. So there's things that you can do in your diet and things that you can take and smell that will help get you sleepy. And then like we said earlier, the Calm app, there's lots of apps out there that can help create an environment for you to be able to sleep. But the biggest thing is just making sure that you're sticking to a schedule and create a ritual around going to bed so it can get you ready for bed so that you can sleep.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. We talked about meditation recently. We've talked about sleep in the past. And there are a lot of things that lead up to a reason that a person may or may not be getting a good night's rest. And you may want to journal or to keep track of how you're feeling when you go to sleep, what's going on just before you go to sleep, what's going on during your day to understand what are some of the obstacles, if you will, that may be keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Those may need to be resolved. That may be able to help you along the way too. So you've gotten some tips before about meditation, you know, understanding your body, understanding what's going on around you, relieving yourself of the stress as much as possible is going to be helpful to you as well. We have learned a lot from you today, and we thank you as always for sharing with us. Please make sure you go to the website, take a look at some of the previous episodes, and find out about sleep. Look some things up yourself. Send Coach Sherry Ann a note if you like, and we can get back to you and we can bring some things forward that will be of help to you. We thank you so much. We honor you and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.